this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. And this is Trystan, he's a Corgi, and we're here for an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. And the sun is moving across the sky so quickly this morning, having a hard time staying in the shadow so that you can see us. Anyway, I'm back from my trip to New Jersey. Hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and Trystan had a good Thanksgiving. He had some extra turkey because my sister made an organic, free-range turkey with no chemicals. Trystan was able to have a little bit of that, even though I, as a vegetarian, did not. Stuck to my lentils. Anyway, so we had a good trip there. However, I brought Trystan in for his annual checkup at the vet office there, and we discovered a few things. One is he has crystals in his urine. More on that later, another day. But we also discovered he has anaplasmosis. Now, this is not surprising to me because in my area, as you may have recalled from past episodes, there have been many horses with it this year, more than I've ever seen, as if I have that much contact with so many horses. But anyway, and in fact, my friend's pony Tulip, who is a senior pony, also afflicted with Cushing's disease, her immune system just could not rally to fight the anaplasmosis, and she is one of the horses that we lose to anaplasmosis. And it turns out Trystan has anaplasmosis. This is the second time he's had it. I think this time he has it worse than the first time, although I didn't directly see the lab results. I'll be seeing that this week. And, you know, we just have so much anaplasmosis in my area, which is good because it was Lyme disease where I used to live a mile and a half away. So the thing about anaplasmosis is that it's much more treatable and not exactly curable, but it's a way better prognosis than Lyme disease. So anaplasmosis was at a time called Ehrlichia, and I believe now those are two separate diseases, although I'm not entirely sure. If you look on the internet, you'll get conflicting responses, but it is one of the tick-borne diseases in the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic, along with Lyme disease and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And you can diagnose it by looking at the red blood cells under the microscope, and you'll find bacteria in the neutrophils in the red blood cells or in the blood cells. And so it results in anemia, and your dog will have the same symptoms as Lyme disease. He'll be sluggish, joint pain, prone to anemia. You'll see red spots maybe on his gums, and I've noticed redness around Trystan's eyes, which is in fact not a good sign. And they will have a fever, which is what happened to that pony. Her fevers were so high, she didn't want to eat, and she wasn't staying hydrated, and she was elderly, and it was just overwhelming for her. So in fact, we also see fever and diarrhea and the usual kinds of flu-type symptoms in dogs with anaplasmosis, as well as in horses. And the course of treatment, when the first time Trystan had it, we didn't treat him. My sister thought he had had it a while ago, and he was 3 or 4 years younger, and that he was on the downhill side of dealing with that. However, he's now 8, and I am going to treat him with a 30-day course of doxycycline. And of course, one of the most important things to remember when you give your dogs antibiotics is to make sure you give them probiotics and possibly even digestive enzymes at the same time. My neighbor's dog, Coco, our little girlfriend up the road, she had anaplasmosis, Lyme disease, and Rocky Mountain spotted fever all at the same time, and it manifested by one day she was just crying on the sofa and couldn't get up. And prior to that, she was still taking walks, but kind of probably subdued, but her people just didn't notice. They had a lot going on in their rest of their life at the time. And luckily that hasn't progressed to that point in Trystan, although I have noticed that he's spending more time upstairs. He likes to lay by the toilet when he doesn't feel well, and when he's hot, he rests his chin on the bottom of the toilet where it's cool. And I am sure he's been having a fever and dealing with it in his own way, and hasn't been talking to his mother about it. And so I feel terrible for him because I know how hard it is when you have a flu type thing. And there have been some days when I haven't brought him places, especially around the TED Talk, because that's when he got bitten by these ticks. He was just chomped by like 16 or 17 of them right after he had his bath before the TED Talk, which was only like 3 weeks ago. So soon after that, he was just exhausted and he didn't want to go anywhere. Oh, except he wants to stand on this chair arm and he keeps falling off. There you go. Get your piggies up. There, I'll hold your piggies for you. Good job. Okay, now you're going to lick me. And I can't see. Anyway, so he's probably had it less than a month. And I do want to treat it this time with Doxy. So I'll be calling the office tomorrow and getting them to mail me some because over the holiday, they weren't open when I was open. And I wasn't there when they were open. So anyway, it can be a really devastating thing, and it's a situation all of us in the Northeast face. And if you look up information about any of the tick-borne diseases, you will find soon thereafter in that section, rigorous flea and tick control methods are highly recommended, which includes topicals and also those orals. And we don't want to be giving any of those orals to our dogs. My neighbor does it for her dog because she was so devastatingly ill, and she's a black Cairn Terrier. It is near impossible to find the ticks on her with her coat. So she gives her the oral, and she's maybe 20 pounds. She's about the same size as Trystan. I don't recommend it. I don't think it's a good idea. Dogs have had seizures and all kinds of other problems with a lot of those oral Bravecto and some of the other ones, the oral tick preventives. So I use a combination of things. I use a topical, and I use a lot of essential oils and herbal sprays, which you need in the Northeast and probably the Mid-Atlantic to reapply daily every time your dog goes out for a walk. I tend to put it on him in the morning, even before he goes out for his little tinkle in the side yard where the grass is kept very short and the chance of getting a tick is pretty small out there. But certainly before I go for a walk, because we're walking along the roadside, and that's one of the favorite habitats for ticks. And they say that they like leaf litter. My experience has not been that ticks are necessarily in the leaf litter. I see them more often climbing to the end of like a little plant and sitting on the end of the leaves of like a little shrubby thing that maybe is a foot high, and they sit there in clusters and then jump on your horse or your dog when you walk by. And that's exactly what happened to Trystan. They were all in the same like 6 square inches on the side of his neck when he got chomped. And the other interesting thing about anaplasmosis is that it's carried in dog ticks, not just those little teeny weeny ticks that you get, the deer ticks for Lyme disease. And so a lot of us think dog ticks are not the Lyme ticks, and so therefore our dogs might be safe, but in fact they aren't, because the anaplasmosis is in the dog ticks. I don't even know why they call them dog ticks, because honestly they eat things besides dogs, and those are the ones that get big and they're disgusting. And like I said, he had like 14 or so of them on him in just a 3-day period, really just from going out to the side yard once, because I don't really keep that meadow mode short because I have flowers out there and I'm trying to make a habitat for pollinators, and it's also a habitat for ticks. So when we walk by the side of the road, I try to keep him out of the leaf litter, away from any little small plants that are growing there. Ticks only need to have it above 30 degrees for like less than half an hour for them to decide to come out and look for a meal. So make sure, unless you have deep snow covering everything, that your dog is still protected throughout the fall and the early winter, because those ticks are out there and they're hungry. And this year we had a huge number of ticks in the first round in June and July. And then we've had such strange weather lately, and it's gotten really cold quite a bit. So I think we've nipped a good portion of the tick population down to reasonable levels, but it's very important that you use tick preventative for your dog. And as I said, I avoid all of the oral ones. They make a spot-on kind of treatment for horses now, which I've seen to be fairly effective with, in my observation, no ill effects to the horse. And ticks love to get down at the very tip of the horse's tail, and that's putting some of that spot on there can be really helpful, because the tail is near the ground, the ticks climb up, and then they find thinner skin there and a delicious place to live. So you have to be careful. And the horses I've seen with anaplasmosis look way sicker than the dogs I've seen. So I think it is probably, and people have had it, I think it is probably worse than what our dogs are showing us. Like I said, Trystan's only change in behavior is a little less enthusiasm for his walks and spending more time upstairs with his head resting on the bottom of the toilet, where he likes to hide when he doesn't feel well. So please be aware of this, even though it is the fall and it's approaching winter. Even when there's snow on the ground, if it's not covering those little plants, those ticks are still out there. So if you have a dog with anaplasmosis, you want to do things to boost their immune system. I'm going to try to improve Trystan's diet and give him some more fresh raw food, frozen, mixed in with his meals of Honest Kitchen and turkey. His turkey's cooked because I use human turkey, and human food is loaded with all kinds of bacteria that need to be cooked to kill. So we do that, and as I said, I'll probably put him on a probiotic and a digestive enzyme along with his doxy for 30 days just to get him back to his normal self, because I only have one Corgi. And I don't want to also strain his kidneys, certainly, if he keeps getting crystals in his urine, which can be from not drinking enough, and we'll talk more about that another day. He has not been a typically thirsty dog. You know, so many dogs take him for a walk and they want to drink. You play with them in the living room for a little while, they want to drink. He's like a little camel. He doesn't drink enough, and I drown his food. I literally put 2 or 3 cups of water in it every meal, and he weighs 19 pounds, so that's a lot of water for a little dog, but apparently not quite enough because he really needs more. So he's got a cranberry supplement for that. So be careful with your dogs with the tick season. If you're using Brevecto or Seresto or any of those orals, be super careful. I mean, they just, especially with a smaller dog, but even in some of the more sensitive big breeds, it can be a real bad situation, and my sister highly recommends against any of those oral flea and tick preventatives. So thanks for joining us today. Hope you have a good rest of your holiday, and that everyone you know who's driving makes it safely back without too much traffic. We didn't have hardly any traffic on the way home. It was a little bit of a line trying to get from 684 to 84, which is typical. Connecticut has construction. We got through Danbury and Waterbury construction in normal amounts of time. It only took me like 4.5 hours to get home, which is only like 10 minutes longer than optimal. So that was pretty exciting. And we're all unpacked and back to our normal lives here, except that I need to really clean this house and wrap up the work I'm doing on my deck of animal connection cards so that those will be ready for you for holiday giving or just personal needs. And we will see you again on Tuesday, because I'll be back at my job as an educator on Monday and Wednesday. So thanks for joining us today. Bisky. Aren't you glad to be home? Or what? Okay, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again on Tuesday. Everybody have a